Welcome back to another fly fishing video. If this is your first visit to the channel, my name is Lindsay. I am a passionate angler with over 30 years experience in both fly tying and fly fishing. I make videos to educate and inspire and help you catch more fish. If you are just starting out on your journey or looking to improve your skills, you are in the right place. I hope you enjoyed today's video, so without further ado, let's get into it. Well, welcome back to the Albury Estates, and today I'm on Powder Mills. This is the smallest of the three lakes that the estate has, and it's probably very similar shape to Weston Lake, and it's also very similar to Vale End. Most of the lakes are long, they're narrow, but with good depth throughout the lakes. Now, we're into the month of November and the trees are really shedding their leaves now. There's quite a lot of leaves sitting on the surface. There's been very little wind this morning, but it is picking up here and there in little gusts. I've already started fishing and I've been lucky enough to catch a couple of fish on pooling tactics. But the kind of tactics I'm using, I would expect to catch more with the number of fish I'm seeing in the lake. Just down the bottom end where the inflow's coming, there's a stack of fish just sitting, feeding on the stuff coming into the lake. They're really difficult to tempt. So I've tried pooling. I think what I might do later on today is go back and try them with static presentation. So I'll put on an indicator, I'll fish a small egg fly or maybe a worm underneath, and an artificial worm, by the way. Don't lose your shit. A fly, a proper tied fly. Yeah, worm. It's a chenille worm, so it's not a real earthworm. I haven't gone into the corner, started digging up worms, and I'm live baiting. I've not got to that stage yet. So I've picked the driest day of the week to come. There's a couple of anglers already here. Surprisingly, they were here before me, which is quite unusual. I'm usually here before the sun breaks the horizon. What are we going to do in today's video? We've come to the smallest lake. Cameron, the manager here at Albury, said this is still fishing the best out of the three lakes. I've already done Vale End, which you might have seen in an earlier video. If not, I'll stick that up in the corner of the screen for you to check out. And that was discussing autumnal tactics for trout. And what we've come today for is hopefully a chance to catch a Spartic trout. Now, I know about 2 weeks ago 200 Spartics went in here. Some of them will be caught. You know, that's the nature of a put and take fishery, but there should be a few left, and hopefully we'll be able to tempt one of the Spartics. So how am I going to achieve that? Well, I think being mobile is really important, so I'm travelling quite light. I've only got a couple of the cameras with me today, and I've only brought some lightweight fly boxes. I've got two. I've got the ugly box, and I've got the sort of eggs and not quite as ugly box, I'll call it. I wouldn't call it a particularly pretty fly box by any stretch of the imagination. But I've got them two boxes, and the strange thing about the boxes of flies is I haven't tied many of the flies that are in it. I'm using a selection of flies from Uphaven Fly Fishing. So yesterday when I was thinking about coming to do this video, I thought, you know what, I need some flies. I'll just dip into that store and see if they're effective. I'm sure we'll find out through the course of the video whether the flies work or not. So the other thing I think we've got to do is we've got to keep moving. You've got to keep moving round the lake until you find a fish that's going to take. Give it 4 or 5 casts and move on. Now, if you're not prepared to be mobile, the other thing you can do, which is essential really on any still water at any time of year, is to change your flies constantly. When I started, I was making maybe 5 or 6 casts, and then I was changing through my flies. Once I seen that the follows were starting to dry up, or I was getting no action, I would change the colour, I would change the size, just to see if I could garner some interest in my offerings. Now, if that's not working, you've got to move location, but always be able to change. Don't stick to one fly all day, and certainly don't stick to one area, because you'll not catch many fish in that way. So what I'm fishing with today is my trusty Nyphos rod. It's an A. Jensen 9 foot for a 7 weight, and at the moment I've got a Hardy Demon reel on with an intermediate fly line. It's a slow glass which sinks really slowly, and I've been fishing with lures from various sizes to 1 inch long to up to 4 or 5 inches long. Some have worked. I've had action to pink and I've had action to black, so they're the flies that have taken my fish, if you like, but they've not been what I would call on fire. I'll get the odd follow here and there, but it's definitely going to be a tough old day. So I'm going to persevere with the intermediate line at the moment, and from the intermediate line, if you're interested, I'm fishing 8.5 pounds of tippet, 10 foot to the fly. It's a single fly here, and I'm fishing barbless because Albury have kindly given me permission to return fish today. So hopefully there'll be something to see. I return a few fish, which is not always the case. So if you don't catch fish, what's the point of coming fishing? Well, for me, and it'll be different for everyone individually, but for me, it helps me. It helps my mental health, it helps my well-being. I'm out, I'm walking around a lake in a beautiful location, and I'm getting my head straight. There's a lot of pressures in life now. There's a lot going on in the country, actually, which I won't get into. But it does weigh on your mind. I've got children, I'm sure many of you have got families out there, and you wonder what the future holds. Especially if you're sat in the house stewing over the problem. Get yourself out to your local fishery, get round the lake. You might get your line pulled, you might not, but nonetheless, you'll have a great time. Well, I'm going to have a few casts here just to see how it goes. In fact, there's a fish just risen at a leaf there. So I'm going to get to it, and I'll see you in a little bit. Now, there is a new feature on YouTube. It's called the hype button. And basically, when the video is released, what happens is you're able to hype it, but you can only do this if you're watching the video on a mobile phone. And what the hype button does is it pushes out the content to more people that enjoy fly fishing and fly tying. So if you could click that hype button for me, I would really appreciate it. So I've had a couple of messages asking about the roly-poly in a little more detail. It's a very simple method, and basically what you do is you get the rod and you place it under your right arm, or if you're left-handed, obviously it goes under the left hand. Then you simply hand over hand retrieve your line, and you can vary the speed from super fast to very slow. Now, if you have some difficulty with figure of eighting, whether it's arthritis, none of us are getting any younger, and you might have some problems figure of eighting, then the roly-poly's for you. Now, a couple of things to watch while you're roly-polying is not to get your rod too far away from the water, because I'll show you what happens. Is if your rod's up here 3 or 4 foot from the water, you start getting that wavy line. Now what that is, it's not a problem per se, but it does cause oh dear, it does cause, sorry Cam, you're putting far too many fish in this pond, it's ridiculous. What it causes is the line to waver, and what that creates is slack in your system. Now, I've said this on multiple videos, the most important thing is to make sure that you have little slack in your system. It goes for river fishing, stillwater fishing, and loch style fishing. If you've got no slack in your system, there's every chance that when a fish does take your fly, you'll connect and hook that fish up. Now, so I've got this rod tip far too high at the moment, but I'm just trying to get my fly back. Now, the lakes here at Albury are still quite clear, which is nice to see. It's not the case with all fisheries, but as I said in the previous video at Vale End, it's amazing, absolutely amazing to watch how many takes and follows you get on almost every cast. You will see fish come to look at your flies, and it's your job to entice them to take the fly. and we do that in various ways, which we'll come on to a little later. I'd like to pause for a moment. You know what's coming, don't you? I want you just to take a minute to click that thumbs up button for me. I'd really appreciate it. It does help grow the channel. Now, I watch my analytics because I want to know what people are interested in, what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy. Stillwater fishing is one of the most popular topics here in the UK, hence I'm doing some stillwater videos. But what amazed me was people used to watch YouTube on their mobile phones and their tablets. Over 50% of people that watch my videos are now watching on the telly, and it can be quite difficult to find that like button. So I'm going to help you out and tell you how to do it. Bit self-serving, I know, but you know, you might watch another video that you really do like. What you do is you click on the big circle with the OK button in the middle, you click up and you click up again. Then you scroll to the right and you'll find the thumbs up button. You'll also find the thumbs down button, but don't press that one. Press the thumbs up. And that's how you like if you're watching on the telly. Really appreciate it, and what I really enjoy is when people say how much they enjoy the content. It makes me think that I'm not completely wasting my time. Now, in the last Stillwater video that I did, I was bestowing the virtues of a good set of Polaroid glasses, but I was emphasising the point about safety. A stray fly could hit your eye or your skin. It's not very pleasant getting a hook in the skin, but if it hits you in the eye, you're in trouble, and I think I've hammered that point home. Now, what I want to talk about today is the different types of polarised glass you can get. Now, I love fishing with my Costa 580Ps because of the bifocal lens. It does make it a little bit easier to change flies through. So what I've got here is, again, they're Costas, but they're low light glasses, and as you can see today, we've got really poor lighting, and it does make it extremely difficult to spot fish in the water. Even with the glasses on, I'm only seeing a few fish, and where you see one or two, there's generally 4 or 5 on the Albury estate. The lakes are very well stocked. I can't emphasise that enough. If you come and you're not catching fish here, I would say it's operator error. It's nothing to do with the fact that they've not put fish in the lake, because you get yourself a good pair of Polaroids and you can see them cruising. And what they tend to do here, not that I come here very often, but when I do, the behaviour I note is that they're hugging the contours of the bank, so they'll be just on that little drop off. There's no need to cast to the moon here. You can cast maybe 10, 20 feet out from the bank and you will be covering fish. So a good set of low light glasses, if you're going to do a lot of winter fishing, and I fish throughout the year, then it's definitely worth the investment. I know it's a big expense if you've already got a pair of sunglasses that do a job for you, but what I would say, if I was wearing my normal 580Ps, I would hardly see anything at all in this kind of light. Now, it's sad really, because when there's a bit of sunshine on the water, you can actually see everything with good Polaroids, and the weather we've got today is what it is. I'm seeing the odd one or two sitting maybe just a foot under the water, and the occasional one is moving water when it's taking something subsurface. So it's not all bad, and I'm catching a few fish, which is the name of the game, I suppose. If you can afford to and you fish a lot in the winter, I would recommend picking up a set of low light glasses. So I got them on the bung, and it's hard to watch. Even when another angler's fishing the bung, it's hard to take your eyes off of that. It's just magnetic. But the problem he had is he didn't realise that you had to stare at the bung. And I said to him, "Oh, you've got a fish on your flies." And he goes, "How do you know?" I says, "Because your bung's swimming up the reservoir, and it shouldn't be swimming away from you. If that's happening, it means there's a fish taking your flies, and you need to do something to hook it up." Sadly, he lost that fish, as I recall, and he didn't go on to catch very many more. It was a tough old day in the end for him. But if you pay attention, it can be really, really effective on its day. I know it's got its decriers, I don't particularly like doing it, I've got to be honest, but it's something I practice because I know some days it's the only ways that you'll catch fish, you know. And I've heard guys say, oh well, if that's the only way you can catch fish, I'd rather not fish. Well, I'd rather boil my ears in hot oil than not fish. So I'm just putting it back out into an area that I've had fish previously, so I'm hoping it's going to do okay. So already in the space of me speaking to you, I've had 3 offers, one that I've hooked up and lost, but hey, that's fishing. I am on barbless hooks today. As I say, Cameron, the manager here, allows me to fish catch and release, and I'm very grateful for that, because oh, it's gone again. Yeah. Yeah, I'm hooking plenty of fish. I just don't seem to be getting them to the net. But it's so effective. Such an effective method. And it seems to be working quite well today. And that was completely static. I don't care what anyone says. If you're straight lining your flies, you're not fishing static. It's as simple as that. The only way to fish completely static is either do nothing, like this, and if you haven't got an indicator on, so I could straight line for these using a weighted egg fly and just keep in touch. But the problem I would have is a lot of these fish are cruising between 1 and 2 feet down, and if I'm straight lining with a weighted fly, it's getting far too deep, and I end up fishing below the fish for the bulk of my retrieve. The only time it's really effective is when I first cast out and I'm fishing the drop, and when I'm bringing it back in where I'm fishing the hang. Whereas the bung keeps your flies at that taking zone all the time. And there's a fish just swimming round the bung, I can just see it. You're probably curious what that is. Now what I'm going to do in a minute, I've had maybe a dozen casts with this, and what I want to do is now I'm fishing in the same area. The fishery's starting to get a little busy now. There's now 4 anglers on it, and it's not a particularly big pond, and I don't want to get in anyone's way, so I'll try and just move a couple of pegs. But before I go, what often pays, I've just seen a fish cruising there. I'm just going to put my fly over it, see if I can get any action. Oh, I can see it looking at the fly on the drop. Amazing. I do love fishing these clear water fisheries where you can see everything that's going on. Fantastic. Now unfortunately, the geese have just gone right in to where I was fishing. Of course, the bung's not ideal when you're trying to make a video, so I'm trying to look at you while keeping one eye on the bung, which is proven quite tricky. Well, I've had a couple of casts with this pink one now, and it's not really proved as effective as the sort of candy atomic fly. I think the candy they might taken for a bit of dead flesh that's maybe come off one of the injured fish or something like that, but this one, it doesn't seem to be garnering the same attention. So I know I've been saying it for a while, but don't we all say it? I'm going to have one more cast, and then I'm going to go and get a little bit of lunch. I think part of my problem with this fly is it's just not getting the depth. Unless I completely stop it, I'm not getting depth. I can see it sinking slowly away now. But I can still see, just about make out the fly in the water. Okay, I'm going to have one more chuck, I promise, and then it's off for a bite to eat. and a cup of tea. Well, you join me, I've had a bite to eat now, and I'm going to start where I started this morning. Obviously, this morning I was on the intermediate line with lures, so this afternoon I'm going to try the egg fly underneath the indicator on these Spartic trout. Now I can see them in the water. When I was walking back to the car for lunch, I did check that they're still there, and they're there in numbers, but I couldn't tempt them with anything this morning. I've got a different rig. Let's see how I get on. We just had a little bit of rain there. It wasn't much, but it was enough as to force a few anglers to their cars for sandwich time. I've been just changing through fly colours, fly weights, and I've even gone to a size 18 small buzzer to try and tempt these fish. Now, I can't even begin to tell you how many fish are there. There's loads, but they seem to be really reluctant to take the fly. Now, my next port of call normally would be to fine down my tippet. So I'm currently fishing with 8.5 pound, which is pretty much what you need to land some of these fish, because they are quite hard fighting. And if you're pulling lures, you definitely need something of that sort of weight category. But while I'm doing this, it would have been wise of me to bring a 5 or a 6 weight and get my tippet down to 4 or 5 pounds to see if they're just a little tippet shy. Sometimes it makes a difference to the fish, the thickness of tippet you're fishing with, and it definitely makes a difference to the speed the flies sink at. I've changed flies so many times though, I'll be hanging it off the hook of the bung if I put another fly on. I think I'm going to leave these in peace. It might be that they're just not on at the moment, and they may come on later in the day, but we'll just need to wait and see. I'm going to pack this up and I'm going to head up the length of the pond. Well, I've gone back to a pulling rig now. I'm fishing a black and gold snake on the intermediate line, and that I was just roly-polying, and when the fish hit I continued to roly-poly. Now, a lot of people, it's very difficult to get out of the habit of striking when you feel a take, but it is a mistake when you're doing the roly-poly. What you must do is just keep roly-polying. Once the fish changes direction, that's when you can lift your rod and play the fish to the net. Yeah, I just thought I'll come off the indicator for a while. It wasn't proving very fruitful, especially down by the inlet there where all them fish were sitting. So I'm back on the intermediate, and I'm kind of mixing up my retrieve when my line's not in a big knot like this. I just can't get over how many fish are in the water. It's unbelievable, and you only see it if you're paying attention and you fish right in and you hang your flies at the end. You'll see very often fish swimming around wondering what it is, and if you hang your flies, sometimes they'll take it, other times they'll just swim on their way. It's certainly worth that extra couple of seconds it takes just to hang your flies and keep an eye on it. Fish it all the way in until you can see your fly coming back to the margins. I've had fish shoot out for the bank to have a look. None of them have quite got a hold of the fly yet, but either side of me there's quite good cover, and the fish will sit in them margins waiting to ambush something the size of this. So always hang. I know I say it in a lot of the videos, but it's definitely worth your while. Now get a long strip in your line after you've just cast, and what I've been doing is mixing it up really. So I'll start with a figure of 8, just counting down the flies. So I've been counting to roughly 10 seconds, and then I'll start to mix my retrieve up. Some long pulls, bit of figure of 8ing, and you know all about it when these take. They've got tails like shovels on them. They're hitting the fly fairly hard when they do hit. I've had a few takes that they've hit it so hard you wonder how the hell they've managed to come off, but when you're fishing snake style flies, I think sometimes they're hitting the fly at the head and they're never seen the hook. They hit the head and then they're gone, and that's that. And when they hit it hard like that, it's very difficult to tempt them to come back. Whereas if you're fishing slow, you might get tap, 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 and then it will just lock up for you. So I've just got to the end of that retrieve. I'm just hanging my flies. So what I'm doing, I can't see the fly because of the way the light is. I'm just watching the end of my Minikin loop, and there's a bit of a breeze here. But if it does anything it shouldn't, I'd then just strike. My line's really misbehaving at the moment. It's not helping trying to cast across the wind. I'm going to get my landing net stood back up so that I can get my line to go in to the net. Now I've used this technique multiple times, and you'll have seen it in many other videos where I'm using the landing net just to keep my fly line off the ground. And the reason for that is, especially this time of year, the banks are starting to get muddy. You don't want to be standing your line into the muddy ground, and they cost a lot of money, these fly lines. So don't be wasting your money by standing all over it. I've just seen a fish there, and I put my fly just a wee bit too close to it. That was right on his nose. Oh, he's coming. He's coming. And now he's not coming. But I didn't give that fish enough lead time really, so sometimes when you see a fish, you muck the cast up and you land it right on its head, which just simply spooks the fish. If you give it lead time, you can see the fish in the direction of travel. What you can do is you can... Oh, I've just spooked one as well. Goodness me, there's so many fish in this lake, it's ridiculous. It is only small. I don't know what the stocking policy is, but there's some amount of fish. Unbelievable. But the Spartic is still eluding me. I just can't seem to get a Spartic to look at any of my flies. Whereas luckily the Rainbow's here to help make the video a little bit more entertaining for you. But I would like to try and nail one of the Spartic trout. What I've found in the past when I've come to target the Spartic trout is they tend to take later on in the day. So I have fished here before to try and catch a Spartic, and I've spent all day not even making videos, just trying to catch a Spartic trout. And what I've found is just towards, as it's starting to get a little bit darker in the afternoon, 3:30, 4 o'clock, the Spartics seem to really come to life. And I'm just wondering if that's the case today, but we'll just need to wait till that time and see. But this is great fun, brilliant day. It's just nice to be out. And it's heartening to see how busy the fishery is. There's 3 other anglers up from me, and across the bank there's a guide with a student learning to fish. Hopefully he's going to get the bug and be a future fly fisher. God knows we need the help. And some of these fish I'm seeing, they're right up in the surface. They're actually moving water. They're not rising to take anything, and I certainly can't see anything on the surface of the water that they would want to be come up for. But there must be something, or it might just be that the lake is so shallow that they're only just cruising around, opportunistic feeding, looking for something that they can get in their bellies. I keep saying winter's coming, but my goodness, it has been so warm. In fact, at lunch I had to take off my middle layer. I was so hot. I'm sure the cold weather is coming, and it can't come quick enough for me, because the grayling don't particularly like the heat either. So the sooner it starts to cool, the sooner I'll be enjoying it better. So I've waited on long enough, and this fly's had about half a dozen throws now. And my philosophy is, if you've if you've thrown your fly 6 times into the same bit of water, there's a couple of reasons. There's no fish there, is one, and that's certainly not the case because I can see them. The other thing is, the first time they come and have a look, they didn't like it and they just won't look at it again. So I'm going to try changing the colour and see if that makes any difference. Now, I did have some success with the bung this morning prior to having a break for lunch, and that was quite heartening. But as I say, I've got nothing against fishing the bung. It's a legit method in my opinion, and on its day it's absolutely lethal, but I don't particularly enjoy fishing it. It's not something I would hang my hat on and say that I like to fish it. So going back to fishing the lures is much more enjoyable for me. Some people just like to fish drags, some people just like to fish nymphs. That's the beauty of fly fishing. There's so many facets to enjoy in the sport. I enjoy fishing what catches fish, to be honest. The tug is the drug. So we'll try pink again and see if that can not entice some of these fish. Now I'm going to try, there's a little bay just to my left here. Just going to try putting my flies across the mouth of the bay. As I was saying earlier, sometimes the fish, they'll hug the contour of the reservoir, and it's always worth just putting your flies through the margin. I think I can see a coy of carp swimming up the margin here. And I've just spooked it. It's bolted to the depths. There's a fish. He's not on my fly though, but my fly has come through his water, so maybe he just didn't like the look of the pink. Well, this afternoon's been a completely different game. This morning I thought I'd done really well. I had a good half dozen fish to the net. I had lots of other interest besides. Plenty of falls, lots of takes. Just sometimes, especially when you're filming, you're not concentrating and you miss them takes. But that's pack and parcel of making YouTube videos. But this afternoon I've come out and I did try and target the Spartic trout that are just sitting in good numbers at the outflow of this lake, and I tried everything under the indicator and they just weren't interested. So I came away from the indicator and I went back onto my intermediate line pulling lures, and almost instantaneously I caught another rainbow trout just further up away from the Spartic trout. But since then it's been rather frustrating, so I've been moving slowly up and down the bank trying to capture a fish, and I'm getting plenty of interest. I've even had a couple of takes, but more follows. If you could weigh follows in, I'd be having a brilliant day. But it's really difficult, and the fish are coming to look but then just steering off. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to wander up round the rest of the lake and work my way back down to them Spartic trout, because I am keen to try and catch one before I call it a day. I'm sure I'm going to be back. I'm definitely going to be back, but I won't come to Powder Mills. My next visit will be to Western Lakes, and that's a different proposition altogether. It's a much bigger lake and it's a lot more challenging, although this is proving to be quite challenging at the moment. With any luck, things will pick up. The light's fading really bad now, and I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be able to change through flies. If you're not catching fish, changing through is so important, and if you can't do that because of bad light, well, it can be quite problematic. Maybe a head torch next time. But it is the winter months, and you're going to have to accept that your fishing days are a lot shorter. Long gone are the 12-hour days by the water. You're looking at windows of 6 to 8 hours, and that's if you're out here for first light, which I was this morning. So let's get back to the fishing and see if we can't tempt another fish. Well, I can hardly believe we're halfway through November. I'm loath to say this, I'm sure my wife will laugh, but it's nearly Christmas. Unbelievable. Well, you'd certainly think so. On my drive over here, I've seen several houses with Christmas decorations out, and I always say to my wife, there is no mention of Christmas until after Remembrance Day, and it seems to get earlier every year. I don't know what's going on with the world. Christmas in November. There we go. I've got a rule, a strict rule in the Simpson household. The decks don't come out the loft until the 1st of December, and then it's weapons free after that. Can decorate the house as much as they like. Well, a much quieter afternoon, and it just seems to start to be clearing up. Got some beautiful light now where most of the afternoon I've not been able to see much to even tie a cast up, so it's been quite difficult to change through flies, and I've struggled. I've really struggled, but that's why they call it fishing and not catching. So this morning was fantastic. This afternoon less so, and I've failed to achieve my goal, which was to catch a Spartic trout, which means I'm going to have to come back and try again, I suppose. But oh my God, what a disaster. But no, it's been good. I've had plenty of sport from the rainbows. Powder Mills is a beautiful little fishery. They've got a flock of geese, that white geese that wander around the reservoir. Always quite entertaining. They didn't try and see me off or anything. They can't be guard geese, but it's such a beautiful place. I just love it here, and I love this time of year. All the trees, their leaves are almost gone, but the ones that are still clinging on for dear life are beautiful shades of amber and orange, and it's just stunning. It's great to be out, and I've had a really great day. I'll leave details of the fishery and that in the video description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.